Imagine this, a quiet English town. A man walks out to buy bread and vanishes into thin air. 5 days later, his body is found lying perfectly clean on top of a coal pile 20 miles away. No dirt, no struggle, just a face frozen in pure terror. And the strangest part? The police officer who found him claimed he was later abducted by a UFO. This isn't a movie. This is the real-life mystery of Zigmund Adamski, a case that still haunts investigators to this day.
Imagine this, a quiet English town, early summer of 1980. The sky is gray, the air damp, and the streets unusually still. In a place where nothing strange ever happens, a mystery is about to unfold, one that will baffle police officers, doctors, and even UFO investigators for decades. This is not the plot of a science fiction movie. This is a true story, the chilling, unexplained death of a man named Zigmund Adamski. A story so bizarre, so out of the ordinary, that many who heard it refused to believe it could ever happen in real life. Zigmund Adamski was an ordinary man. He wasn't rich, he wasn't famous, and he certainly wasn't looking for trouble. He worked as a coal miner, lived with his wife in the quiet town of Tingley, and spent most evenings drinking tea while reading the newspaper. He was the kind of man everyone described as steady, kind, and dependable. Someone you could trust to lend a hand or share a smile. But on one ordinary June morning, his peaceful life took an unimaginable turn. Without warning, Zigmund walked out of his house to run a small errand, and from that moment on, he was never seen alive again. What happened during the next 5 days remains one of the most disturbing mysteries in modern British history. His disappearance would trigger a chain of events that sounded like a scene from the X-Files. Government secrecy, talk of alien abductions, and a death so strange that even experienced investigators admitted defeat. When his body was finally discovered, it would send shockwaves through England. The police officers who arrived first were convinced something unnatural had taken place. His face, frozen in an expression of horror, seemed to tell its own story, one of unbearable fear and pain. And yet, there were no clear signs of struggle, no evidence of assault, and no reason for him to be found where he was. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said Zigmund had been taken by beings from another world. Others whispered about secret government experiments carried out in the shadows of the Cold War. The newspapers called it a riddle with no answer. Even now, more than 40 years later, no one knows who or what took Zigmund Adamski's life. And that's what makes this case so haunting. It challenges everything we think we know about life, death, and the limits of human understanding. Because when you look at the evidence, the timeline, and the witnesses, one thing becomes clear. Something happened to Zigmund Adamski that defied logic. Something that left marks not only on his body, but on the minds of everyone who saw him. So before we dive into the details, before we retrace the last steps of a man who vanished into thin air, take a moment to imagine standing in that small English town, hearing the news that a local miner had been found dead in the strangest of circumstances. Would you believe it was a tragic accident? Or would you start to wonder if the truth was something far more mysterious? Because in the case of Zigmund Adamski, the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. It was the morning of Friday, June 6, 1980, in the quiet town of Tingley, West Yorkshire, England. Summer had just begun, and for most people, it was a normal day. Gray skies, the faint smell of rain, and the distant hum of traffic on the narrow country roads. For Zigmund Adamski, 56 years old, life was simple and peaceful. He had come to England from Poland many years earlier, after the war, and had built a modest but stable life. He worked as a coal miner, a hard but honest job, and was known by his neighbors as a kind and reliable man. He lived with his wife, Lottie Adamski, and they were preparing for a family wedding. Their goddaughter was getting married soon, and Zigmund was looking forward to attending. He wasn't the kind of man to travel far or stay out late. His daily routine rarely changed. But that morning, something broke the pattern. At around 3:30 p.m., Zigmund told his wife he was going to the local shop, just a short walk away, to buy some bread and potatoes. He left the house wearing a dark suit jacket and his usual cap. He didn't take any luggage, didn't carry extra money, and didn't tell anyone he planned to go far. To everyone, it was just another ordinary afternoon. But that was the last time anyone ever saw him alive. When he didn't return home by evening, his wife began to worry. It wasn't like Zigmund to stay out late, especially without calling or leaving a note. She called neighbors, friends, and even the shopkeeper, but no one had seen him. By nightfall, she reported him missing to the police. The West Yorkshire police immediately began searching. They combed through local parks, woods, and nearby roads. Posters were put up, and officers checked bus stations, train stops, and hospitals. But there was nothing, no trace of him. Days passed, 1, 2, 3, 4, and still no sign of Zigmund Adamski. There was no reason for him to run away. He had no enemies, no debts, and no history of illness or confusion. Friends and family were baffled. It was as though Zigmund had vanished into thin air. His wife, Lottie, barely slept during those 5 days. She would sit by the window every night, hoping he'd walk up the road and open the gate like he always did. But that moment never came. And then, on the 5th day, everything changed. A worker, nearly 20 miles away, in another town, stumbled upon something that would shock the entire nation. It was June 11th, 1980. 5 days after Zigmund Adamski vanished without a trace. The morning was cloudy, and the air over the town of Todmorden, West Yorkshire, felt unusually heavy. Calm, like the calm before a storm. At around 3:45 p.m., a local railway worker named Trevor Parker was going about his normal routine. He had done this job for years, nothing ever strange, nothing ever out of the ordinary. But that day, something caught his eye. As he climbed up a small coal pile to check the area, he froze. There, lying motionless on top of the dark mound of coal, was a body. At first, Trevor thought it might be someone sleeping, or maybe a drunk who had wandered onto the site. But as he got closer, his heart began to race. The man wasn't moving. His body was lying flat on his back, eyes open, staring blankly toward the sky. The body was identified as Zigmund Adamski, the miner who had been missing for 5 days. But here's where things get strange, almost impossible. The coal yard where he was found was nearly 20 miles from his home in Tingley. No buses, no trains, no cars connected the two areas easily. How could a 56-year-old man missing for 5 days end up on top of a 6-foot-high coal heap with no footprints, no drag marks, and no sign of how he got there? Zigmund's clothes were perfectly neat. His shirt buttoned, his jacket straight, his shoes polished. No dirt, no sign he had climbed or struggled. His watch and wallet were still in place. Nothing was stolen. But the strangest thing of all was his face. Witnesses described it as frozen in terror. His eyes were wide open, his mouth twisted as if caught mid-scream, like he had seen something that terrified him to death. And then the burn marks. On his head and neck were several strange wounds, circular, clean, almost surgical. Covering them was a thick greenish gel substance, sticky to the touch. Police collected samples and sent them to labs, but the results were shocking. The gel didn't match any known chemical, ointment, or medicine available at the time. The autopsy deepened the mystery even more. Zigmund's body showed no signs of violence. No broken bones, no bruises, no internal injuries. The coroner concluded that he had died of heart failure, but could not explain what caused it. The doctor examining him said the wounds appeared to be fresh, no more than 2 days old, which meant at least 3 days after he vanished, Zigmund had been alive somewhere.
But where? And what happened to him during those missing days? The police had no answers. Every theory, from kidnapping to accident, failed to make sense. And as the media picked up the story, the mystery of Zigmund Adamski began to spread like wildfire across England. A man vanished without reason and reappeared 5 days later, dead, clean, and terrified, in a place no one could explain. Soon the story took a darker and more mysterious turn. Local newspapers began to link the case with UFO activity. The area around Todmorden was already known for strange sightings in the sky, glowing orbs, hovering lights, and unidentified objects that locals had been reporting for years. And here's where it gets even stranger. The police officer who found Zigmund's body, Alan Gottfried, would later report his own encounter with a UFO just a few months after the Adamski case. According to Officer Gottfried, one night while on patrol, he saw a bright metallic object hovering silently above the road. When he tried to approach it, his radio malfunctioned, and for several minutes his memory went completely blank. Later, under hypnosis, he claimed that he had been taken aboard the craft and examined by strange beings. Was it a coincidence that the same officer who discovered Zigmund Adamski later experienced what sounded like an alien abduction? Or was there something larger at play, something connecting both events? UFO researchers claimed Zigmund's strange burns and the unknown gel were signs of radiation exposure or chemical experiments. Others believed the wounds were caused by a failed extraterrestrial medical procedure. Perhaps they tried to heal him and failed. But skeptics had their own explanations. They suggested Zigmund may have been caught up in a top-secret government experiment during the Cold War. Could Zigmund have accidentally witnessed something he wasn't supposed to see? Could his death have been covered up to protect a secret? Every theory only led to more questions. Where had he been during those missing 5 days? Who treated his burns with an unidentifiable gel? And why did his face, that horrifying expression of terror, look as though he had seen something not of this world? Even the police couldn't deny the strange coincidences. In his final report, Officer Gottfried admitted, "I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was as if someone had placed him there deliberately. But how and why, I just don't know." To this day, believers insist that Zigmund Adamski was taken by something not human and returned lifeless for reasons we may never understand. Skeptics still cling to science, trying to find an earthly answer, but the truth remains hidden, locked behind 5 missing days that no one can explain. Whatever happened to Zigmund Adamski, it was not normal. It was not natural. And it may never be solved. Even decades later, the death of Zigmund Adamski remains one of Britain's most chilling unsolved mysteries. There were no arrests, no confessions,
No logical explanations that could ever make sense of what happened between his disappearance and the discovery of his body. Zigmund wasn't a criminal, nor a spy, nor someone living a double life. He was a simple, honest man, loved by his family, respected by his community. And yet his death was surrounded by elements so strange, so beyond reason, that it left even the most experienced investigators speechless. After the story broke, newspapers across the country went wild. Headlines read, "The Man Who Fell from the Sky," and "The Alien Death in Yorkshire." TV stations sent reporters, and UFO enthusiasts began visiting Todmorden, hoping to uncover the truth. But all they found was confusion, fear, and silence. Even Alan Godfrey, the officer who found Zigmund, said years later, "There are things that happened that night I can't explain, not with science, not with logic." And that's what keeps this mystery alive, because the story of Zigmund Adamski isn't just about death, it's about the boundaries of human understanding. What if there are things happening around us that we simply can't see? What if we live in a world where reality is much stranger than we dare to imagine? Some believe Zigmund's story was a warning that we are not alone. Others think it shows how easily truth can disappear when powerful forces are involved, whether human or otherwise. More than 40 years have passed, yet Zigmund's death continues to haunt investigators, believers, and skeptics alike. His story has inspired documentaries, books, and endless debates. But no theory, not even the wildest, has ever fit perfectly. So perhaps the real truth is something we're not ready to understand. Maybe Zigmund Adamski stumbled into something meant to stay hidden. Maybe he was taken by beings or by humans, and when they were done, they returned him marked, scarred, and silent. Whatever the answer is, one thing is certain. The mystery of Zigmund Adamski isn't just a story about death, it's a story about the unknown. And sometimes the unknown is the most terrifying thing of all.